Hello and welcome to Florida Pulse. My name is John A. Torres, and I'm the engagement editor of Florida Today, a part of the USA Today network. With lawmakers all throughout Florida arriving in Tallahassee this week for the new legislative session, we thought it would be a perfect time to check in with our two favorite Capitol reporters, James Call and John Kennedy, who write for the USA Today network, Florida. Hey, guys.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
My producer, Rob Landers, and I welcome you both here on the show again. We have a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. The first thing I'd like to ask about is the dynamic between lawmakers and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. For years, DeSantis has pretty much had carte blanche in the state, but it seems as if things have changed. Can we expect some rough waters when it comes to issues revolving around immigration, insurance, guns, and more?
This is shaping up to be the most interesting legislative session in years, with the legislature reasserting itself and rifts emerging within the ruling Republican Party on spending, immigration reform, condominium safety, and guns, while in the background, potential players in the 2026 gubernatorial campaign are beginning to maneuver. Republican lawmakers feel emboldened after following dictates from DeSantis for 6 years. They've stepped oversight of the governor's spending. They want more disclosure from his state agencies. They've restored $56 million in gubernatorial vetoes and are looking to restore more cuts. Two Republican senators want to prevent DeSantis from building golf courses and pickleball courts on state parks. Representative Bertie Jocks wants to make it more difficult for Wall Street-backed landlords to buy homes in Florida, a move that goes against the party's history of deregulating big business. Senator Don Gates wants to limit the profit of utility companies and require greater disclosure over the compensation of insurance executives. I think there's a different move in the state capitol this year.
It is something where we see, Governor DeSantis is in his second to last legislative session, term limited, so he'll be gone soon. And I think the Republican legislature, Republican-dominated legislature right now, is feeling its oats. It's saying that this is the time to exert some separation from the governor. The governor, as recently as last year, he was still in the presidential run last year when the legislative session began in January of 2024. And I think a lot of people at that time were still beholden to him and thinking, this guy might still become president someday. And, for a lot of legislators, I think there's sort of a wish that they're going to become, ambassador to the Bahamas or something like that under the Florida governor, then becoming president. But all that has changed. President Trump is back in the White House. He is the dominant figure in Republican politics right now. And DeSantis, while the governor does think he's going to be widely seen as potentially running again for president in 2028, that's way down the road. And I think that is giving Republicans a lot of opportunity right now to, as I said, separate from the governor.
Interesting. Okay. Well, it should be a fun session then for you guys to cover. Lawmakers have already passed immigration legislation in Florida, but there are some on both sides of the aisle who say that more is needed. What was exactly passed earlier this year, and where is it going? I think I saw a proposed bill that would hold employers liable if they employ workers here illegally who kill someone. What are the growers saying? What is happening with this?
Well, yeah, the legislation that passed in January really empowered law enforcement local law enforcement to become more involved in immigration issues under immigration customs and enforcement, where local governments, local police agencies would have to respond to requests to pick somebody up, to hold somebody that was believed to be, an undocumented immigrant. So it was largely focused on those areas of enforcement. Now, going forward, what was not really covered in that was anything related to employers. And that was a point of friction from, outnumbered Democrats were sort of saying, if you really want to do something about immigration, you have to crack down more on how people are moving to Florida to get jobs and to get work, whether it's in roofing, construction, landscaping. We all know across Florida there's a lot of immigrants that are working in this state. How many are undocumented? That's still a question. But now the legislature, at least some legislators, seem to be willing to now tackle employers. The state already has a E-Verify law that was passed a couple of years ago that requires employers to kind of check the legal status of their employees, but it exempts a lot of categories of employers. And that's where there is legislation now to try to make it where all employers, not just those with 25 or more, which is the current law, employees have to participate in E-Verify. Now you'd have it down to, even local landscapers or whatever it might be, might have to check the employment status of people. So, and then there's liability too attached, where they're talking about trying to, that same legislation would make it powerful for potential grounds for a lawsuit if an employee who is undocumented committed some kind of harm, and the employer could be held liable for that as well. I think some of that is already existing law, more or less, as far as what you could actually grounds for a lawsuit. But this would, I guess, bolster that standard and make it clear that employers could be on the hook as well. So there's that kind of stuff right now going on, where there might be some building on to what was just passed in January.
Yeah, but the bottom line is that we have a math problem here. The National Council of Agricultural Employers estimate that half of crop farm workers lack legal status, and that's about 700,000 people nationwide. And Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, a member of the newly created State Immigration Enforcement Council, said Florida sheriffs would soon target tens of thousands of immigrants in the states illegally, excuse me, who are accused of felonies or have a deportation order, but Florida County jails only have about 2,000 available beds. So there's definitely a math problem if there's going to be a crackdown on immigration.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, well, we will have to stay tuned and keep watching that one. Let's talk about guns for a moment. Brevard County's own Randy Fine has proposed a law allowing for guns on college campuses, and State Rep Tyler Soroy is proposing lowering the legal age to buy a gun from 21 to 18. And I believe open carry is likely to be brought up again. Bring us up to speed on what's happening with guns and what are the chances any of these actually pass?
I would say very good. I would say chances for the lowering of the age to buy long rifles and ammunition have a very good chance of passing. Senator Fine may be leaving for a congressional race, but Senator Jay Collins will pick up the torch. Collins has said that pro-gun forces, those wanting to lift regulations, will keep taking a bite out of the apple every session until they get all their Second Amendment rights restored. There are more than 20 bills related to firearms, 4 versions of Representative Cyros's proposal to reduce the age to purchase or sell a firearm, which is a rollback of gun control measures approved in the wake of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School massacre. Right now, also in Brevard County, Representative Monique Miller is getting heat from the Gun Owners of America. This past weekend, they referred to her as the travesty in Tallahassee. She apparently campaigned that she would file the group's open carry bill, but has yet to do so, telling them that the time is not right. This is a growing rift within the GOP. Governor DeSantis has encouraged the people wanting open carry. Groups like Gun Owners of America can't understand why, with the supermajority of Florida Republicans in the legislature, they are unable to get open carry passed. Meanwhile, Democrats have 6 bills filed to increase regulation. They want to repeal preemption of local gun laws, prohibit assault weapons, and define what a machine gun is, but they just don't have the numbers to prevail.
Well, one of the issues that has been, lingering over this debate over the last few years is that Florida law enforcement doesn't want open carry. And that's been a standard that they just fear, law enforcement arriving in a situation where everybody is displaying sidearms and they don't know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, one of those kind of arguments. And the Senate President, Ben Albritton, has said that he would side with law enforcement in that debate. And that would, mean he would not be in favor of open carry. Now, Governor DeSantis has said, the state should be moving toward open carry. It should do it. That's kind of the push and pull right now. Do they want to, defy law enforcement? At least the associations, such as the Florida Sheriff's Association, Florida Police Chiefs Association, those are the bodies that kind of have, raised this issue as in opposition. So, there are individual sheriffs that are, okay with it, but that is something that I think, as James indicated, I think the Second Amendment advocates have sort of worn down legislators to expand this open carry issue, and the rollback of the age to purchase long guns. That's something that indeed it came in after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas tragedy in 2018, and it's something that the National Rifle Association has been fighting ever since in court. So again, I think there's a feeling that they'll roll that back too. So I think the movement right now seems to be in favor of more gun expansion in Florida. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and all that went on there is fading into history now. As we hit the 7-year mark.
Right, and the Florida Sheriff's Association, as a group, have yet to weigh in on whether they support or oppose officially the open carry law.
Well, in the past, they have opposed it, the open carry. So maybe this time around they'll go along with what legislators are crying for right now, and the governor. We've seen that kind of tactic a lot in Florida over the last few years.
And I just want to follow up here. I'm going to go off script for a moment, but are you guys hearing anything about law enforcement has really backed President Trump loyally after those pardons for those involved in the January 6th events at the Capitol? Are you hearing anything about law enforcement being a little disillusioned perhaps or upset, or is it still Trump all the way?
Yeah, I'd say it's still pretty much Trump all the way. I think there are probably some private not very pleased with the way law enforcement has been treated in that issue when it comes to January 6th. But I don't think it's large enough, or at least Florida enough, to make anybody defect from President Trump right now and whatever he's doing.
Yeah, I've heard nothing. I've heard nothing in that area.
Fair enough, guys. A big issue here in Florida is, of course, property insurance, along with costly repairs to many aging condos. I'm not seeing a whole lot of stuff proposed. Can we see any action on this, or?
Well, both are very difficult issues to grapple with, I guess. There are lots of bills filed now. They've been kind of trickling in. But what they're going to do is a question mark. For the last couple of years, the Republican-led legislature has been pretty much saying that they fixed the problem of property insurance, or at least they think they did, with special sessions a couple of years ago, and where they largely stripped people of their rights to sue insurance companies if they had any dispute with their property insurance settlements. That has indeed brought a little bit more of an influx of property insurers back to the state. And it has not, however, translated into dramatically lower rates. Rates do seem to be kind of stabilizing a bit. But, in a year after which we've seen, wildfires in California, that has an effect on property insurance's costs nationwide. It has sort of an industry ripple effect. So, I don't think this year we're going to see any plummeting of property insurance rates. And that's something that really hurts people. But the answers are hard to say. There is legislation right now that is aimed at trying to provide lower property rates and rate freezes if people harden their homes, do things to make their homes safer from hurricanes. There's a proposed constitutional amendment that would do some of that. That could be on the ballot in 2026. But again, that's going to be a little bit of a back and forth here with the legislature as far as where they go. Similarly, with the condo issue, where this arose from the 2021 Surfside building collapse. We've reached a point now where condo associations have to raise money for their reserve funds for maintenance that must be needed to, stabilize the building or to make it structurally sound. And that is costing a lot of people across the state a lot of money. Many of them retirees who don't have a lot of, cash on hand. So that has been a huge issue that, again, legislators really have all the answers for. There are various bills, whether it goes to, they would provide loans to people or grants to retirees that can't afford to pay their homeowners association, condo association fees that are required, to kind of slowing down just how much money a association has to raise and have on hand for these needed repairs. So there's still no real consensus over what to do. So the 60-day session is going to be kind of critical on that.
Yeah, these two issues, the property insurance issue and the condo safety issues, are, again, points where flashpoints within the Republican Party. Different factions are emerging, and we may not have an oppositional party in Florida, but there are divisions within the Florida Republican Party that are emerging, and this property insurance and condo safety are two issues where that is evident.
With property insurance rates so high for everybody, and here in Florida, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis recently has hinted towards ending property tax. Now, I would be all for that, but is that realistic?
Okay, I'll try. Remember Karl Rove once told a reporter that we're living in the post-truth era, post-reality? So, anything is possible in politics. And Senator Jonathan Martin of Fort Myers, he has a bill to initiate a study on how we can do away with property taxes.
Well, obviously, it would have an enormous effect on state funding, especially local government funding. And this Republican-led legislature, for many years, has been a little bit at war with local governments. A little bit of it is, red state versus blue communities, where we have cities that sometimes are led by more progressive leaders who try things, and it antagonizes the state legislature. So I think this Republican-led legislature would be willing to try to do something that might hamstring local governments. However, it would doing away with property taxes might be too much. How do you fund police? How do you fund fire? How do you, get the garbage picked up? There's enormous amounts of things that would be affected by this. The offsetting thing, of course, would be you could raise the sales tax to offset it. Mm-hmm. But already what's being talked about as what would be needed in sales tax revenue is, as much as a doubling or more of our current 6% state sales tax. Which is also, layered on in many communities, most communities, with another local tax as well. So I think the legislature would also be very reluctant to, try to convince people that, we've raised the sales tax and that's good for you. Because I think the sales tax is something that hits people every day, whereas property taxes, for homeowners, it comes out of, it's kind of part of your mortgage payments. And, it's a little bit more invisible, maybe, although it's obviously sizable. I was here in 1986 when the legislature tried to enact the services tax and expand the state's sales tax to services. That was an enormous blowback on legislators and then Republican Governor Bob Martinez, who backed away from the legislature's, services tax enactment. which at that time was considered very cutting edge, but was totally opposed by Florida citizens. So I think you're treading into another politically dangerous area when you're talking about getting rid of property taxes and maybe replacing them with higher sales taxes. And that's not even addressing the issue of disproportionate. Poorer Floridians pay more money in sales tax than they do in property taxes. So that would be a factor too. So it's a complex issue, but I think they're going to be talking about it for now. And I don't anticipate we're going to see any kind of final result this legislative session.
Yes, it's a complicated issue, but two things to keep in mind. One is that these are Ronald Reagan, President Reagan, who's an icon to many of these lawmakers. Demonized government, and this has been the goal ever since the Reagan Revolution, to handcuff government. And the other thing is, people will be out there campaigning on the issue of eliminating property taxes, eliminating a tax. They're not going to be talking about raising the sales tax. The campaign will be to eliminate property tax. And I'm not making any predictions about where that will go.
All right, so you guys have talked to me. I am not going to spend my property tax, money.
Don't spend it yet.
Yeah, I will hold on to that. I'd like to ask you both about Senate Bill 80, also known as the State Parks Preservation Act, which came about because last year, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis floated the idea of developing our state parks, adding hotels and golf courses and pickleball courts and such. It feels as if just about everybody that I've spoken to, anybody wants to keep the parks as they are. So what's your prognosis on this? Is this bill going to get any opposition?
No, I don't think so. Floridians love their state parks. There's no doubt about it. And, you make reference to what was the Great Outdoors Initiative to build golf courses and luxury lodges and pickleball courts on land set aside as natural Florida for the enjoyment by, passive recreation, the state parks. Outrage erupted, and Senator Gal Harrell filed Senate Bill 80, the Park Preservation Act. That will put a regulatory straitjacket on state park managers to prioritize conservation-based recreational activities, and specifically states that golf courses, pickleball courses, and lodges are not those types of activities. And she would require DEP to develop a 10-year management plan for each of the state's 175 state parks. Those plans are to prioritize hiking and fishing and camping and those types of activities. The bill supporters believe that this should keep DEP too busy to imagine building 3 golf courses at, say, Jonathan Dickinson State Park, or a 350-room lodge at Topsail Preserve in Santa Rosa County. This eruption last summer was very similar to what happened in 2011 when Governor Rick Scott's administration tried to build a golf course at Honeymoon Island State Park in the Tampa area. People in Florida love their state parks, and you mess with them at your own risk. I say Senator Harrell will be very successful.
Yeah, James is right. This idea is one that has been around for a while in various forms, but it never went as public as it did last year. And this was the DeSantis administration. Some genius within Department of Environmental Protection put together this plan, and it got leaked. And there was rebellion from Floridians about this idea. And even though variations of it have been around for a while, as James pointed out, under Governor Rick Scott, there were ideas to develop golf courses in some of the state parks. I think there's overwhelming support for this legislation. And when we talk about the Republican-controlled legislature defying Governor DeSantis, this is a little bit of a footnote to that, because this is in reaction to a DeSantis administration idea from a year ago that now they're basically going to outlaw. And DeSantis has tried to distance himself from it kind of, minimizing it as, kind of a blue sky idea that one rogue, employee put together that he knew nothing about. But you can believe that or not. But nonetheless, I think the swipe back at Governor DeSantis from Republican leaders in this legislature is another remarkable moment.
James and John, is it too early to talk 2026? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will be termed out, but he's already touting his wife, Casey, a former television personality, to replace him. We also know that Congressman Byron Donalds has already declared and has the backing of President Trump. What can we expect here in this next year and a half?
Great entertainment. I think Governor Ron DeSantis is looking past 2026 when he is term limited out of office, and Casey DeSantis as a potential gubernatorial candidate makes Ron no ordinary lame duck. I mean, these lawmakers lately have been emboldened, standing up to the governor, thinking that Team DeSantis will go away in a couple years, but maybe Team DeSantis stays around for another 10 years, then they have to reconsider their strategy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a political tactic by DeSantis, term limited, his future kind of in the rearview mirror right now when it comes to, as a leader in Tallahassee. But the idea of having his spouse as a possible successor, well, that, emboldens him and kind of gives him a little bit more power, even as his own personal influence is waning a bit. So there is some of that. And then, of course, the other element with it is President Trump's endorsement of Naples Republican Congressman Byron Donalds. Donalds has been a incredibly loyal ally, kind of a sidekick to President Trump in campaigning around the nation, as a matter of fact. And with Trump early on endorsing Donalds, that has kind of rattled the DeSantis people, because DeSantis wants to, kind of bestow that honor on his own person. And right now it looks like he's not going too far outside the governor's mansion and finding who could he bestow it on, and that's his wife, Casey DeSantis. But again, it kind of comes down to this Trump versus DeSantis element, where Trump has his favorite. Many of the Republicans in the state are probably going to get behind Byron Donalds because, at the very least, President Trump likes him. But so that's going to be a kind of a brush fire going forward, I think, during this legislative session, where we will see moments that there's a flare up of some conflict between legislators and the governor, and maybe it comes back to this idea of who likes Donalds and who likes Casey DeSantis. But a question will be whether we see, a more public statement from Casey DeSantis in the next 2 months. Does she have to come forward and sort of say, I am a candidate? Governor DeSantis can be raising money for her quietly in some capacities into Florida's largely unregulated campaign contribution funds. Because that's something that Byron Donalds is going to be able to be doing now with the strength of the Trump endorsement. And then, of course, there's wonderful irony in that if DeSantis doesn't like the Trump-endorsed Donalds, let's look back. Donalds is a 3-term member of Congress. Ron DeSantis in 2018 was a 3-term member of Congress. He got an endorsement from Donald Trump in the Republican primary. Donalds is getting an endorsement from President Trump in the Republican primary. So, there's parallels there. Both men also were members of the Freedom Caucus in Congress, very, arch conservative. So, there's a little bit of maybe self-loathing by DeSantis when he goes at Byron Donalds, because the two men are very similar when it comes to where their position at the time that they were going to be running for governor. So, only in Florida do we get those.
That's true. But when you look at their resume, when you look at their personal history, there's a distinction, I think, between Donalds and DeSantis. I don't think DeSantis is Trump type of person.
Well, entertaining it will be, as you said.
I mean, the thing about Ron DeSantis, the thing that strikes me about Ron DeSantis is he's a bulldog. I mean, he bites into something and he doesn't let go and he doesn't quit. And this is an example of that. I mean, he and Casey very easily could have taken Casey out of the equation. And I find it interesting that they did. And of course, it helps the governor with the Florida legislative session and in Florida politics. But at the same time, if DeSantis is a builder and he's building, and he's going to be a governor like a Reuben Askew who defines an era in Florida politics, this would be an important step in creating that legacy. I mean, could he possibly get his wife elected? I mean, that's an interesting question to me.
Oh, it sure is. Yeah. And, early polling shows, not surprisingly, Casey DeSantis is a better known name than Byron Donalds right now. So there is that as well. But, I think that's likely to change over the next 2 years.
Yeah. And DeSantis has an incredible ability at raising money.
Yeah. And he was also, using her name in his last campaign and talking about her previous bout with cancer, and it was an effective commercial, I thought.
And his legislative record, I mean, he has a legislative record. I mean, he can point to legislative accomplishments that I think Donalds lacks. I mean, Donalds he's this week's flavor, but we know that President Trump has been known to discard people quickly.
We have lots to watch.
Yeah, yes. I think we are going to leave it there. James, Call, John Kennedy, as always, we appreciate your time, your expertise, your insight. We'll see you again, hopefully, in about 60 days with some answers to some of these questions that we raised here today. As always, we appreciate you watching Florida Pulse, brought to you by the USA Today Network. I'm John Torres. I'll see you next time.